Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We got Nick Farabaugh on today. I want to talk about Mike Tomlin says Darius Slay is going back in instead of James Pierre, who's been lights out. What's going on there? Also, updates on Aaron Rodgers and the running back situation, all here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day, because we're your team every day. A reminder, the Locked On Steelers podcast is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. If your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. More on them later. As I said before, we're joined by the man himself, Nick Farabaugh. He's back on the show from PennLive.com. Nick, there was a sense of some of us out there that maybe James Pierre had done enough. We're going to get to Aaron Rodgers. Trust. We talked about him yesterday. I know there's some people saying, what about Aaron Rodgers? We talked about him yesterday. We'll get to him in a sec. But James Pierre's been playing lights out for the Steelers. 8 passes broken up. Ties Joey Porter Jr. for leading the team in passes broken up this season. Was just lights out. Had a breakup on a deep ball to Jamar Chase. Looked and so of course he's gonna start right when Darius Slay gets back. It's fine. He's earned his spot. Mike Tomlin said otherwise in the press conference. It's not shocking, but it does make you scratch your head a little bit.
It does make sense. At least a rotation, right? And there's part of me that is like, I'll believe it when I see it, because sometimes Mike T does.
He does play games.
Astray. So perhaps we do see James Pierre actually start or play more. But if we're going to take his comments for what they were, which was pretty, I mean, there's no skirting around it. He straight up just said Darius Slay's going to start. It makes no sense. I mean, I get it. Now that they're running a lot more split safety, 2 high stuff, that's far more conducive to Slay at this part of his career. Yes. He ran up they ran so much quarters last year when he was in Philly, and he was really good in that. So I understand it. It's more of what Slay does. He's good in that. But look at what James Pierre did against Jamar Chase, against T. Higgins. Yep. I mean, the play where he is in a bracket with Ramsey. Ramsey gets caught flat-footed because Chase adjusts his route and takes it on the post, and Pierre just stays in his hip pocket and breaks it up on a deep ball. I mean, beautiful stuff. You watch the tape, he still did a great job. It's not like he was getting beat on like the backside of concepts and Flacco just didn't find him. He was pretty much wall-to-wall really good all day. And I think the tackling part is the other thing. Slay hasn't tackled very well this year, and some of that's, I think, because of age. And every time he tries to tackle, it feels like he exits the game with some ailment. Pierre's physical. He's big. I mean, we've seen him tackle really well multiple times this year. And I think
tackling the Chargers game.
Right. Yeah, right. I mean, rock bottom, the dude. The thing about Pierre that I like more over Slay is I feel like when the Steelers want to go back to their single high stuff and play those man-to-man concepts, I would trust him more than Slay. And so I like the ability to have Pierre in there to do that. So, I mean, I guess we'll see where the Steelers go on that, but it doesn't make much sense. The only reason you can look at this and say they're doing it is pedigree. Obviously, Slay is a very well-tenured veteran that has been there, done that. He's been an all-pro, and I think Mike T has just respect for guys like Darius Slay. And I think that's a big part of why Slay is going to continue to play. And then the second one is I do think the new schematic tweaks that they have put in fit what Slay does well. So Mike T wants him to play because he feels like that's the ideal fit for Slay, and I get it. But on the other hand, I mean, James Pierre is playing his head off, man. I mean, he's playing lights out. It's hard to take him off the football
field. Thank you for not cussing.
Right. So he's playing his head off.
There you go.
Is what I'll say.
But But I'm with you. Like, listen, I see the devil's advocate here. I see the idea that, look, before they were allowed a spot drop cover 3, they were allowed a man cover 1, and that puts a lot on Darius Slay to be a type of player that he just can't be anymore because of his age. He doesn't have the top end speed that he used to have, the explosive burst that he used to have, but he can play technically sound football in cover 2 and quarters where he has assistance on the outside, where he doesn't have to be on an island by himself. And I think that's what the Steelers are starting to do well with this defense is in that new scheme that we've been talking about, having more split safety options where both sides of the field have support on the deep end. And I think that's where I hear, if that's the plan, is to keep him in those situations. But like you said, the flexibility is something that I think is something that's valuable to this team, and that they want to have plays where James Pierre can go run and cover. And heck, there was even a split safety play where that really came in handy, a third down where basically Jamar Chase, he has a sort of option route where he can break to the inside or break deep. And Jalen Ramsey took away the inside, while James Pierre was running with him. But because James Pierre could run stride for stride with Jamar Chase, that helped him break up the pass. Does Darius Slay do that? I don't know at his age. I don't think he can. I don't think he does in that spot. And so that led me to kind of pester Mike Tomlin a little bit in his press conference. And I think initially he understood, but towards the end, he took a bit exception to it. Here is Mike Tomlin when I was trying to get more from him about James Pierre and what he needs to do to get more snaps in this defense.
Mike, James Pierre leads you guys, ties Joey with the most passes broken up right now, despite not seeing the field as much as other DBs. What does he have to do to be more of a consistent presence for you guys, over a guy like Darius Slay?
He's done a nice job, but again, usually when you're a backup, man, you get targets. And so when you get targets, you generally get breakups. We have not been displeased with his efforts. We've been quite pleased with his efforts. We're certainly interested in continuing to use him as we move forward.
How do you balance playing experienced players versus playing hot players, like in the case of Pierre and Slay, where Pierre is breaking up a lot of the passes, and I know that some of those because he's getting those targets, but overall he is playing at a high level. Balancing using that hot hand versus bringing in the experienced guy.
What's your question?
How do you balance that as a coach, making that decision as far as who to use?
Thoughtfully.
That's classic Mike Tomlin right there. He's not going to tell us what the secret sauce is. He's not going to answer that here. And listen, I take no qualms. I take no problems with Mike Tomlin being like, I'm not getting into this, because he's not going to dive into how they're making that decision. But it has to be a real consideration, Nick, because Darius Slay, we both acknowledge. I think Alan Saunders has been on the show. We talked about it. He has had some really bad tape for the Steelers this year. And that's not to say he can't have good tape, but they got to see something. And it's very possible. Also, this is just sportsmanship. This is a ruse to make people think, oh, Darius Slay's coming back in, but they don't get the Darius Slay matchup, and then opponents are like, wait a minute, we thought Slay was going to be back in here, maybe, but still, I get Mike defending the team and not letting us get no information. That's his job as the head coach. But the question still baffles me, and that's why I was trying to pester him as best as I could to get more from him about this Pierre Slay situation.
Right, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. I played devil's advocate and said, okay, you could say what he does well fits what they're doing right now. Yeah. But Pierre's played so well, and I really think back to, let's go to both Bengals matchups. You have that play from Pierre on Chase on a very similar kind of up-in little post route. You remember when Slay was in that position? Granted, he didn't have a bracket this time. It was man-to-man against Andre Yoshivas, and he got beat deep.
Yeah.
And what was basically a game-losing play. I mean, I just think of that difference. The man-to-man coverage difference is so great. So could you maybe rotate them? Sure. But why not just play the better guy? I mean, Pierre's just played so well. And sure, James Pierre, we thought we knew what James Pierre was before this year. So could he have a come back down to earth moment? Sure. That's certainly in the cards. But we haven't seen it. Every time this guy gets on the field this year, he balls out.
That's why I say ride the hot hand.
Right. He's deserving of the playing time. And I just think the Steelers, oftentimes in general, many times across the roster, they're a little late to kind of doing stuff like this, making widespread changes. They did it at safety, but corner, it feels like that should be the move. But I think there's a respect to Slay, a respect towards the player Slay is, that is going to hold back Mike T from doing that. I really do think that's a part of it, but it shouldn't be happening. To be quite honest with you, Pierre has earned the ability to be the starter, and if he struggles, then you can go to Slay again. But I don't really understand just inserting Slay back into the lineup.
It certainly seems baffling, and hey, maybe Mike Tomlin is doing a thing here, but maybe this is about pedigree, maybe this is about his, but it certainly will be a lot of questions if Darius Slay comes out and this pass defense holds up against the Bears and they shut down Caleb Williams and their passing attack with DJ Moore and Rome Odunze and those guys. If they do that, I think we'll always. I will sit here Sunday evening as I'm recording this show and say, hey, I was wrong. Mike Tomlin was right. But if they get toasted, a lot of people are going to go, and Darius Slay is the one getting picked on. There's going to be a lot of people looking like, now, Mike, you knew what you was doing by putting him back out there. So that's the risk there. But hey, they're the coaches. We're the journalists. Let's see what happens there. We will report what we see there and respond accordingly. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk more about the DBs, but we, of course, have to talk about what Mike Tomlin said about Aaron Rodgers. We'll do those two things and address the running back situation, which I thought was also interesting commentary. All that here. Coming up on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it because it also helps you correct your form in real time, and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter here with Nick Farabaugh of PennLive.com. Nick, let's talk about the quarterback situation. I want to dive back into DBs, but we can't go anywhere unless we talk about Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin. Basically, he didn't say leaving the light on. He straight up said, like, hey, Aaron's going to be limited at the top of this week. You know, he's not going to practice Wednesday, but they're going to see if he can handle Thursday or Friday as a practice. And they don't have a specific day that they do plan, but I think the thing here is, bottom line is, they don't feel like he has to miss time unless he said the word he used was functional and functionality. And if he's able to function and do the basic tenets of what's needed of the Steelers quarterback in their system, he's going to be able to play because they trust him that much. I know we just got done talking about, playing a younger guy for an older guy, but is this a mistake considering Mason Rudolph and, what he can do as a backup quarterback?
I mean, it could be. It's his non-throwing hand, though. It's not going to really affect a ton of things.
I agree.
I think the biggest thing is, can he take snaps under center? Can he catch the gun, the snaps in shotgun? And can he have good enough ball security? It's those three things to me that you check it off. If he can check those off, deal with the pain tolerance, and he's not going to make it worse. If all three of those things check off, I mean, he's going to play. And listen, I think there's discussions that are kind of outside the injury when we talk about Rodgers versus Rudolph. Like, Rodgers has struggled throwing down the field over the past 1.5 games. Rudolph is known for kind of throwing those rainbows down the sideline. We saw one of them to DK, even though it got called back. That's kind of something they've been missing. So, like, I don't think it's necessarily a mistake if Rodgers can play. I just think if you're going to have the Rodgers versus Rudolph discussion, it's probably less about, is Rodgers too hurt to play, and more about what skill set are you bringing. And there's no shot in heck that they are going to sit Rodgers. It's just not going to happen.
If he's healthy, he's playing.
100%. And so, is it a mistake? If he can't make it worse, if he can do all the functional things, I mean, as long as he's clear, I think it's a go for Rodgers, especially because he's going to be motivated in this game. This is not a normal game, right? I mean, this is like Big Ben against the Browns. Rodgers is just going to want to beat Chicago. He's enjoyed being Chicago. The championship belt celebration is going to come out if he gets his against Chicago this Sunday. Like he wants this game. So I think there's things there. I don't think it's a massive mistake if they end up playing.
No, I hear you on that. Again, it's about his health and making sure that he can, not get, further injured here. I do think that's important. But we talked about this a lot yesterday. I didn't want to ding on it too much in this episode. I want to get back to talking about this secondary. And I think one thing that we're seeing on top, I've talked a lot about how the two high safety looks, the increase of that over the last 3 weeks, especially, has really helped this secondary play together. But I'm also seeing, Nick, when I look at the All-22, a very much an increased sense of trust in this secondary, of knowing when to pass guys off, trusting that other guys are going to have something. And that's something I don't think we saw a lot of in the first 7-ish games of the Steelers. I think we saw a lot of plays where guys were like, he's not going to have that, so I've got to have that, and then coming out of their roles. And then we heard players talking about, we talked about on the show, Peyton Wilson talked about, hey, guys have to stick to their jobs. Sometimes we're trying to do too much because we think we're helping somebody else. We have to trust our guys to have it. And one thing I'll show in my film study that I have for the Post-Gazette coming out, that came out this morning, is there's plenty of plays where you're seeing guys pass people off, and it's working, and it's fitting the structure of what the Steelers are wanting to do, and it's allowing them to take away more things that other teams want to do. I think that's an underrated part of how the Steelers are playing better on defense.
It is. I think the communication in general is way more fluid. I think Duggar, that's one thing when you play for Belichick and you play for Vrabel and you play for these defensive kind of almost lieutenant types, right? Like, the communication part is drilled into that guy's head. And that was one of the first things he said after his first game here was communication is the foundation of good defensive football. I remember that quote, and I think that really speaks to the mind of Kyle Duggar. And I think we know Jalen Ramsey is very loud and energetic and he's going to get the call across. And so those two guys are like great hubs of communication, and that has allowed stability. They also are just really heady. They're high football IQ players. I mean, how many times do we see them in split safety looks kind of 10 yards back? And it really helps both of them because when they're not in the single high stuff, they're not 20 yards back and they can make plays on the quick game stuff. I've seen Ramsey drive on a stick route or a little curl or a crosser. I feels like about 10 times in 3 games. We've seen Duggar work in the robber role and get the pick, obviously, but he's taking away routes over the middle of the field. And then the underrated part of these two guys to me, Chris, is the run game. It's not like they're coming down and making tackles at the line of scrimmage like a Deshaun Elliott would, but what they are doing is the runs that could get out of the gate and turn to 30 or 40 yards, they're making the tackle and only making it 8 or 9 yards. It's such a big thing. I thought that was a really underrated thing, specifically against the Colts and Chargers. The Chargers could have had a much better day on the ground because they got past that second level about 5 or 6 times, but it was always Ramsey and Duggar there to make the tackle and hold it to 8 or 9 yards. Mm-hmm. And so that's good football. If you can hold the runs to 8 or 9 yards, because remember that Jets game, Breece Hall was getting 15, 20, 25 yards on those runs. Kenneth Walker had a big run. Chase Brown in the first game had 2 big runs. He only had 1 this time around, and they kind of bottled them up. And I think that's another big thing. So these safeties are just doing so many different things. They're playing to the leverage really well. They're giving the corners help, so the corners are playing confident ball. Look at how Joey Porter Jr. is playing now. I mean, just trusting his technique and trusting that he's going to have help inside. It's all working really well. But those safeties are the stability of what is allowing this defensive resurgence right now.
Agreed. Stability is the word Mike Tomlin said before. I don't think it should be I don't think it should be skipped over, and that's why I wanted to spend a segment talking about that on top of the cornerback question that we have. But I think that structurally it supports so much, and when you have that, and like you said, the limited explosive runs that the Steelers allow, they're about to go up against a team in the Chicago Bears that their offense has the second highest explosive run rate in the NFL right now. 15% of their runs go for 10 or more yards. And That's something you got to quell if you want to keep this offense in check. If you want to make this about Caleb Williams, if you want to make that young second-year quarterback have to make some risky decisions against your defense that, is fourth in the league in turnovers. So, I think that's a big part of it, but you need that stability. And even if that stability is sometimes, hey, you're going to lose occasionally up front and give up a 4 or 5 yard or a 6 or 7 yard run. But the job is, like you're saying, don't let those turn into 20, 30 yard runs, because then those are the plays that really open things up and wear you down over time.
100%. And here's the thing. It's not just this game. They're facing 3 really good back to back to back. Yeah. The Bills are an absolute just domination on the ground now. They've kind of built that up. James Cook is something serious. I need no introduction on Mr. Jackson and Derrick Henry. Nope. We know what they can do. So and these 3 games. Right. And then the Lions later. So they have these games. Here's what I will say. If the Steelers can go up against the Bears, the Bills, and the Ravens and stick in split safety looks and not allow explosive runs, they're going to be able to stick in this. They did it against a really good Colts team. They were the best defense against Jonathan Taylor this year so far. One thing we haven't seen happen yet, though, Chris, is a team forced them out of their split safety structure by just running the ball all day on them and forcing them to slide Duggar or Ramsey down. We haven't seen it yet, and the Steelers don't want it to happen. One of these 3 weeks, probably a good chance it happens at some point, but if it doesn't, I think that speaks to how good the front and the linebackers are playing. Patrick Queen's coming off his best game in probably a month. He played a really good game against the Bengals. They need him to play really well, but the front is holding up at a high level, and these safeties are being really good anchors to not turn those explosive runs out. So I think this is going to be an interesting game, especially because of how much this Lions team attacks the perimeter. Really, that's DeAndre Swift's music. I mean, he gets to the perimeter, turns it up, and it's going to be all about angles for Duggar and Ramsey to make sure that those do not get into explosive runs. So this is a really good test. And the next 3 games, I think, are going to tell a lot about just how ready-made the Steelers' run defense is out of split safety looks. It's a really underrated storyline we're going to find out about this defense.
No, I agree with you there. There's a lot I think that plays for the Steelers here, and that's why, again, I think this safety move is really, it could be a pillar to what could define the season if this stuff holds. And agreed, a big part of this will be if the Steelers get run over still coming up in these games, they're gonna have to come out of those safety positions, and that could lead to a breakdown of the defense. But that's why I think it's important that you're seeing better play from Patrick Queen, better play from Peyton Wilson, better play from Keanu Benton, who I think is playing. This might be if he has arrived. Oh boy, Nick. This is a lot for the defense because Cam Hayward's still playing pretty well. Derek Harmon's coming up. Y.A. Black is if you're getting that from this defensive front, man, this defense, I think it might be too late for this defense to push its way up into a top 10 category statistically. Unless they literally go like 1976 and shut out 5 guys or some stuff like that. But I do think that they can get to a point where this defense is playing like a top 10 defense, even if it's not necessarily won by the whole season statistic going into the playoffs. And again, they got to make the playoffs still. They got to win. They got to do those things. But there's a chance with the way that they've adjusted things that if they're playing that well, that's the stuff that can help you beat really good teams, whether it's November, December, or even January.
Last 3 games, 6th in EPA per play, 7th in success rate. They're a top 10 defense in the last 3 games. It's not just turnovers. I think that's the thing. That's why after the LA game, I was sitting in the locker room just thinking to myself, I didn't understand TJ Watt and Cam Hayward's comments that day because they did a good job on 3rd down getting off. It was the one big play to Ladd McConkey. And I was like, you guys did a pretty good job. And then they did a pretty good job outside of that first drive this week. So, they got 2 turnovers for touchdowns this past week. They did a pretty good job limiting the Bengals, period. They're getting off the field, forcing a lot of punts now. It's not just turnovers anymore. They're actually getting straight-up stops now. I think that's the big thing is this is not a team overly reliant on turnovers right now. The last 2 games especially, they have shown the ability to get off the field and just force punts. And I think that's a huge, huge step forward for them. They have just been straight-up good down and down.
I think it's a big part of it. I want to talk about the running back situation because Mike Tomlin had some interesting comments there that left people baffled about how does this team really feel about Jaylen Warren. We'll talk about that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you the show is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on all the action than FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of a game or you just want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to who has the next fourth quarter comeback. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late-game push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when they hit on their first bet of $5 or more. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up today and play your game with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Nick Farabaugh of PennLive.com. Nick, I got to say, if you told me at the end of the game when we were coming out of the press box that Jaylen Warren was held out of the game, that he was ready to go, whereas I did see him try to sneak back into the game, but I thought maybe they're just taking medical precautions, but I thought that's what it would have been. But when we talked to Mike Tomlin on Tuesday, he kind of indicated it wasn't just about medicals. It was that they felt that they had something good in Kenneth Gainwell. And I'll read through his answers to the questions. Basically, someone asked, was Jaylen Warren cleared to return? He said, Mike Tomlin says, yes, he was. There was a sequence where Jaylen Warren was on the field and then came back off. And was that a coaching decision to bring him back off? He says, yes. And so what was it that you were protecting Warren, or were you feeling Kenneth Gainwell? And Mike Tomlin says this, quote, Jaylen Warren was cleared to play and willing to play. We just thought Kenny was doing a good job. Those are decisions that we make in games sometimes. It's not totally up to the player's will or the expert medical advice. It's about who gives us the best chance to win. And certainly at that point in the game, based on what we've seen, things were going well with Kenny. Things were less than ideal with Jalen. And so we stuck with the hot hand. And Nick, Jaylen Warren, I think, has been the best player, most consistent player on offense this year. And so for them to say, no, we were good, things weren't going well with Jalen. Jalen was averaging 6.2 yards per carry. Normally I have a simple, oh, wait a minute. I know Tomlin needs. I know what he's doing here. Now, maybe this is the sense of protecting Jaylen Warren from himself and keeping him fresh. And they were like, hey, we can win this game with Kenneth Gainwell and this can be fine. But I still think this might be doing a little bit much here, especially when Jaylen Warren was good to go to get back in the game.
I'm not really sure where it was going well with Kenny part came from either. You look at the numbers, Warren by far having the better game. Now, Kenny picked it up after that, but it wasn't really going that well on the ground for Mr. Gainwell up to that point.
2.7 yards, even after that. He didn't have it. His day was through the air. He had 7 catches for 81 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was what he was doing well. Running the ball, Jaylen Warren averaged 6.2. He averaged 2.7.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't really understand from that perspective. And Kenny Gainwell, I get it. In this matchup in particular, because the Bengals, Barrett Carter might be the worst linebacker starting in football right now.
Oh, boy.
And Kenny Gainwell was just cooking him. Okay, I get it. Geno Stone doesn't want to tackle. Like, there's obvious things that you can just eat on that Bengals defense. So I get it. I think I know Mike didn't say it straight out, but Jalen said after the game he was told he didn't go back in because they were just holding him out to keep him fresh. Part of me thinks, I know Jalen doesn't really player speak very well.
He does not.
So I think part of me thinks it's very much a medical thing, and this is also just trying to give props to Kenny G, I think, to some respect. But this entire rotation is weird, isn't it?
Weird.
Like,
it's very weird.
Kenny Gainwell is a good player, but it's like they put him in at the worst times. Warren will have a big play, and then Kenny comes in and just saps the energy of the offense in the red zone. Or Kenny will be moving, and then Warren will come in. Or every now and then you get the random Caleb Johnson drive out of nowhere. Like, it's it's the rotation timing wise is weird, and it doesn't seem to always ride the hot hand. I think that's my qualm with it. Now, to me, the real one is, why did Jaylen Warren not play the last 10 plays of the 2-minute drill?
Yeah, that was another one. I didn't understand that.
What is that? Kenny G is a good receiver, and if you looked at his tape against the Chargers, he should have had a pretty good day there.
Mm-hmm.
If Rodgers hits him in the flat, he gets a first down. He had an open slant route that he cooked the linebacker on. There's meaningful things to have Kenneth Gainwell on the field on third down for. But you're telling me you can't work in some more early down work for him and put Jaylen Warren on the field for some more third downs, because we know how dynamic he can be in space. A lot of that rotation doesn't make sense. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with Slay and Pierre, too. It's just, there are decisions over this roster, Jonnu Smith out snapping Pat Freiermuth. Does that make sense? There's just some rotation stuff that doesn't make a ton of sense. And this is clearly one of them to me. Gainwell's a good player, but I think sometimes they just put him in inopportune times. And sometimes it's the vice versa. Sometimes we see Warren or Johnson get put in at inopportune times when Gainwell's cooking. It just doesn't feel like they ride the hot hand sufficiently well in this offense at running back.
And the one thing I can wonder about is they are concerned about Jaylen Warren's long-term health. They do not want to run the wheels off of him. And that's possible. Jaylen Warren, and I said this when they let go of Najee Harris, and I was like, they need to get somebody that can take the snaps off of Jaylen Warren, because he is not a bot with the way that he runs. I think it's also a difference between him and Kenneth Gainwell. Kenneth Gainwell makes a lot of the guys miss that he does by outrunning them, by making them miss in space. Jaylen Warren can do that, but he also runs through people. He takes the contact, initiates it, and then disengages you very well. But that's the stuff that the more you do that, the more you put your body at risk. And when you're a smaller player, that's the stuff that wears and tears you down. And I think the Steelers look at Jaylen Warren and say, we want this guy not just for the rest of the season, but I think for some years to come. And if you wear him down to a nub, you're going to lose him sooner than you'd like. And maybe, and again, that's a theory, maybe that's what's behind this. But to your point, do it in ways that say, hey, you know what, Jaylen? This is your drive. Go get him. But you know what? Next drive, Kenny, you're in there. And in that way, there's a flow. And so I hear you. I think there's a better way to do this. And it could be there. Now, granted, we're complaining about a game that they won by 22 points. And that ultimately Kenneth Gainwell lit it up. In my grades, he had a 3-star performance. Jaylen Warren had a 2-star performance. And if you get that kind of production, week in and week out, you can do a lot of damage. But we also know this was the Bengals defense. We also know that this was that they didn't get this kind of production against the Colts. And granted, maybe they should have with at least Kenneth Gainwell, because he was getting open a lot. But I think the Steelers have to be prepared to try to find more synergy in this offense, because they're going to need it in the coming games. This Bears team that they're playing this week, and we have Lauren Kotz of Locked On Bears coming on tomorrow to talk about this matchup. But this is a Bears offense that they rank top 10 in scoring. They're number 3 in total yards, number 2 in rushing yards. They're the number 2 most run explosive team in the NFL. They get a lot done on this offense. They also are number 5 in time of possession. The Steelers are 30th in the NFL. This is going to be a game where you're going to need the offense to possess the football. And part of possessing the football is finding that momentum and riding it for longer and better success. That's the stuff I think the Steelers need to see. And part of that might come with better chemistry and letting groups settle in with each other to feel that out.
Listen, it doesn't mean everything, but the Steelers still have not run more plays in a game than their opponent this year. And that, to me, speaks to something. Now, they won the time of possession last week, finally.
By 5 seconds.
Right. And I mean, that's crazy to me that they haven't done that. They just don't sustain drives. For a team that's run first, they don't really run the ball as much as you think. They're actually more slanting pass heavy now.
Yep.
But you look at opportunity share. If we just go to Warren and Gainwell, Warren's snap share, 59% right now, 21st in the league. I mean, that's not high. Gainwell has 43% of the snaps, because they do have some they had some snaps together at times, because they do put them both on the field together a decent bit. But it's not like Warren's getting used as some workhorse back. I mean, 21st in the league for how he's performing is pretty low. It's kind of crazy when you look at it. I mean, in terms of routes run, he's at only 104 routes run this year, by far on pace for a career low in that regard. So they're not using him as much as a pass, kind of in the passing game. And I will say, when we talk about the sustainability of what we saw against the Bengals, there are some things that are just not going to happen. 3rd and 17, you dump it off to Darnell Washington and he gets 18 yards. Is that going to happen every week? Probably not.
No.
You convert a 3rd and 12 up to Roman Wilson, and then a 1st and 23 goes 26 yards the next play on a screen pass to Gainwell. Like, the Steelers have, I believe, 3 conversions of 3rd and 10 or longer or 5 conversions of 3rd and 10 or longer this year, and all 5 of them are against Cincinnati. It's just kind of crazy. It's just a stat to think about. The offensive fluidity this week was okay, but the tape is still not great. 243 yards after the catch, they finished with, I think, 275. Like a lot of this is yak stuff, and it's stuff we saw early in the year. But the Steelers' passing offense, Chris, it doesn't really have an intermediate or deep passing game, and I think that's something to think about, because I think Gainwell and Warren actually can be parts of that, and kind of how you use them on, maybe Texas routes. Can he kind of split out on slants or stuff like that? So the running back rotation can actually factor into that. But in general, in the offense, the flow is just weird, and the running back part of it is factoring into that because they feed off the momentum of Gainwell and Warren a lot.
Yeah. And I think that they should feed off momentum, but they need to let that momentum build a bit more. And I look at this offense, and I think there's potential for this offense to have that synergy and have that chemistry and to be that unit that keeps defenses guessing a lot more often. But I think that they're still finding what's going to do that on a consistent basis. And part of it's the O-line too. The O-line has to play better. That there's run blocks that they miss. There's times where I think that they miscommunicate. But again, as Mike Tomlin, I asked him about the offensive line and other things, and he talked about, hey, it's part of the progression. You're going to have your ups, you're going to have your downs. And I think that's he's absolutely right. I talked about that leading into the season. I said, guys, don't expect the offensive line to be up and down, but look at, for example, where Keanu Benton and Joey Porter Jr. are right now. These were 2 guys who this time last year, and even just about a month ago, there were questions like, man, are these guys busts? Are they ever going to find a stride? Are they ever going to start playing consistently better? And at least right now, in the last month or so, both of those guys are playing much better. Keanu Benton has gotten at least 3 straight games with really high grades for me. Same thing for Joey Porter Jr. These guys are doing that. And so you're seeing those guys develop and the support they're bringing to their team. Imagine if the offensive line starts doing that either later this year or sometime next year, where maybe Broderick Jones starts to click, Troy Fautanu starts to click, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, the chemistry that these guys have as a unit starts to mold in. This kind of stuff is going to build. But I think what you can do right now, if you're helping yourself and Arthur Smith, is letting the veterans who know what it's like and know what's needed in the NFL to kind of feel their way and let them build their momentum. I think that's going to be one of the bigger tasks the Steelers have to figure out in the coming weeks. And again, the Bears defense ain't exactly elite neither. I think that this is another opportunity to clean things up this week. The Bears defense ranks 26th in scoring, 27th in yards. This is a chance to still go out there and find yourself before you start hitting that gauntlet where you play the Bills, you play the Ravens, you play the Lions, you play the Ravens again, and you get the Browns in Cleveland. And we know that the Browns in Cleveland are still a different team, even when they're a bad Browns team, which they are right now. So there's something there. I think that the Steelers they have to tap into it soon.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think the offensive line in terms of pass pro has gotten a lot better. I think Fautanu and Frazier and McCormick are kind of clicking there, but the run game is 100% where they're not right now. The run game looks like a jumbled mess sometimes, doesn't it? And so that's part of where they need to click. And I think when you look at Warren and Gainwell, they've created so much, especially Jalen. I mean, he just bounces off guys, creates angles that should not be there, has great patience. He's such a detailed runner that I don't think people necessarily always kind of take for granted what Jaylen Warren does sometimes with the details and how he runs. It's really fun to watch. And so, that momentum kind of leaning on your backs, it's a really talented room right now. and doing so in a way that builds the momentum and builds into the offensive line. Because I think when Warren is back there, bullying guys over at the second level, turning what might be a 3-yard gain to 7 or 8 yards. If I'm a big lineman, that's kind of bringing me on, right? That's egging me on to do it, and then kind of yanking him off the field. It kind of ruins the mojo a little bit. And so I think just more conscious things like that kind of work, setting up kind of situations and setting up a clear rotation. Because right now, honestly, Chris, like the rotation is just kind of like pure on randomness and vibes. Like it's just like, Kenny's gonna go in here, Jalen's gonna go in there. Oh, KJ's gonna go in on this random third quarter drive. Like it's like who knows when it's gonna pop up. So I think a more exact science to it, just kind of feeling out the hot hand, would be very beneficial to the Steelers' run game.
Hey, who knows? Maybe there is a science, and we just don't know the formula yet. And sometimes I will defer to coaches on that a lot and be like, hey, I'm not saying I'm in the meeting room with you. I don't know exactly what it is. And heck, there's times that I look at a play and I think it's this, but when I talk to a player or a coach, it's something completely different. It's like, okay, hey, this is what it looks like on tape, but this is what they were trying to do here. So there's always stuff there in the background. But to your point, I do think that could be a big storyline moving forward. He's Nick Farabaugh. I'm Chris Carter. Nick, thanks so much for joining us here. Let people know where they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at FarabaughFB. You can follow me on Blue Sky at Nick Farabaugh. Make sure to check out the stuff, PennLive.com/Steelers, and check out the YouTube channel, the Steelers Blitz on PennLive.
Absolutely. He's Nick Farabaugh. Thanks, Nick, for joining us. Thank you all for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, wherever you get social media. My handle's always at Carter Critiques. You can read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by going to post-gazette.com. You can find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of those daily Monday through Friday episodes. Reminder, check out my film study in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Carter Critiques, where I break down what they're doing in the secondary even more. So if you liked what we talked about here, you could see the tape of it there. We'll catch you here tomorrow for Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.